starting. Oh no. Reverse. Oh, okay.
No troubleshooting today needed.
No troubleshooting today.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Let
Hi.
me see if we are live elsewhere. You can keep talking just for fun.
Okay, let's just keep talking.
Cool.
Going
Cool.
live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter. Are we live on YouTube? We're live on YouTube.
Okay. I'm just figuring out my volume still.
Yeah.
Did I cut up for a second?
Not much. I feel okay.
Okay. Okay.
Good. Sorry. We're on. We have a couple of minutes in front of us to talk just about stuff. So I know you don't have a hat right now, Megan. I'm pretty sure you're in the Christmas fever, holidays fever. Are you? Yeah?
Jazz fingers, Christmas.
Just
Yeah.
intoxicated. You didn't drink anything before the live. Because I didn't. No, of course not. But
You sound very.
so.
Second. I've got my little tea, little horse. Ooh, cup.
Getting fired up.
Yep.
Sure, of course. Just wanted to do a fun things. It could be just. I think it would be more a conversation today. I'm not even sure we'll design something. It's just a question I saw. I didn't even read it completely. So whatever. Yeah. But, yeah.
Sounds great.
So we have 2 minutes. So what do you want to talk before we start? Anything?
Just insert banter topics here.
Insert what?
Right? Banter topics.
Any canned banter?
Do we have any of that?
So will you check your emails in the next 2 weeks? Will you? Everyone.
You.
Probably.
Anything to do with tables, filtering, searching. That's where the juice.
Exactly.
Huh?
Okay, we can start whatever, Well, I think we feel that we want to talk about tables. Do we have something about tables? Is it tables today? Let me share my screen.
Is it? What is it?
See. I found a problem somewhere on the interweb, and I said,
Santa brought you a UX problem.
Yeah,
Isn't that great?
yeah,
You're so
with some
lucky.
code.
Does that mean you've been good, or what does that mean?
Well, User are being bad. Users
have been bad.
Can you see it? Yeah.
It's just loading on my side.
Yeah, it's loading as well.
Purple dots.
Okay.
Purple dots.
It's a little bit slow today, like everyone right now.
Yes.
Don't try to say that you're fully efficient and not procrastinating the last days of, work.
Oh, cute.
Slowing down. So, I'm hearing myself. Okay, what's the problem we'll work on? So I don't know exactly who.
You want to zoom?
Gave us the problem, but should one filter the selection of another filter? Just for the title, I said. We have to take.
Wow, dude.
Should one filter the selection of another filter? And so how should it work?
Ooh, okay.
You want to read it for us, Ceara?
Sure. Do you want to just give me a little zoom in here? Okay, that's great.
Well, are you in Whimsical? You should be in Whimsical.
I'm not. I have the lowest amount of tabs open so that my internet will just be good.
I may need you and Megan on Whimsical to write and design stuff.
Yeah, okay. It's fair enough. I'll get in there right away.
Okay.
So, first time asker, forgive me if I get anything wrong. Oh, that's nice. I'm working on a big data enterprise product that has many filters to allow the user to find what they want in a table with thousands of rows and 20 plus columns. Every column is filterable, and columns might include price range, weight, etc. Out of these dozens of filterable columns, 2 in particular are what I'd like to ask about: category and subcategory. Ooh, these 2 filters, as you can imagine, have a close relationship. As the UI works right now, subcategories available options to filter from are affected by category selection. A user could filter by the dairy category, for instance, and still see subcategory options that might include cookies or beef, for example. What is the convention that I should follow in this case? Keep the filters independent, like all other filters, or make these filters dynamically populate one another, either one way or both ways, like back and forth between categories and subcategories. I'd be interested to know your thoughts and any examples in the real world. You can see where some filters affect other filters and other filters don't affect others, like in the same table. Thank you in advance.
So, what do we think
That's
about
hard.
this? Is it a common question?
It's not a common question, but it's like really one of those real annoying things that would come up in development that you didn't actually think of. And you should have probably thought about it.
I think if I'm right, quite a few places, quite a few filters might do this, but we don't think of them as independent filters. They might actually side of each other. For example, if a filter with countries and then another filter with cities. Cities belongs to countries. So it would make sense not independent of each other. In fact, I would even go as far as to side of each other. So you'll have one, and that would be kind of like a, I don't know, maybe you call it a location column. And then when you hit, it could be a drop down with a bunch of countries, maybe that you could, filter through by. When you hit it, then the next set of drop down appears to cities, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back just to the problem statement, just so we're aligning on what we're at. But yeah, it's we kind of have this kind of behavior somewhat sometime in drop down cities. Now it's in filtering, whatever. We have to think about how we filter that with some. That would be some kind of a common thing, but kind of hard problem also. Okay, so let's work on this. What's the problem, you think? What's we're trying to solve right now? So how we can say that? So what do you think is the task here? Are they talking about cookies, beef, feel like? So as a user, I want...
Cute.
So we don't know exactly what's the task right now. We don't know if they need to get somewhere or scan something or make a decision and go to the next step, or could we make any assumption of what's the task here before we... Yeah, what do you think?
I think well, maybe the problem, at least from the title and how they've described it, they just want to know how should they approach this relationship of the two pieces.
Sure. Well,
I think that's
for what
the
outcome
problem.
they want to filter. They want to filter that to do what exactly? Just to filter. I'm not sure people just want to filter in life.
Well, they want to find a result based on categories and subcategories, right?
Okay.
Or they want to whittle down a large data set. Yeah. Not to get super mad and rage out. Yeah.
So they want to get to results.
Always.
So how we can say that?
Let's see. Let's see. I'm just going to take a stab at it here. Okay. As a user, I want to reduce the number of search results. based on, hey, Google, based on and subcategories. So I can find the right result.
I want to reduce the number of search results based on categories so I can find the right results. Okay. Okay. You want to find the right set of results?
Yeah, like probably the right set. Because if it was a singular result, then you'd probably have more of a search sort of vibe to it.
Exactly.
But you could have kind of both interplaying, but the right set of results.
So reduce the number of search results. So that means they already searched something. They have a list, and now they want to refine it.
Well, they have a table view. They didn't do a search necessarily, right?
That's our assumption. Let's do that.
Yeah. So, through the thousands of rows and 20 plus columns that they mentioned.
I want to add a word here, maybe like easily or efficiently. Reduce the number of search results. Maybe efficiently.
Efficiently, yeah. Can we
What do you
be a little bit more
think?
precise than just efficiently? Let's hope that what we do will be efficient. Let's
Well, there's also, I think there's also a piece of that descriptor because it's not just efficiency. You also want it to make sense and you want it to not have conflicting results, right? Because that's what can potentially happen in this interaction. You want validated or correct filters to happen, or you don't want to create weird cases where it's in a bad state that doesn't really make sense, because that's what's happening. This person is describing where you have like chicken breasts or whatever, and it's like, nah, man. Like if you did that, then you just have zero results, and you might not be able to tell like why you have nothing there.
Yeah, you'll have to like kind of scan all. So definitely trying to articulate and capture that piece of it somehow I think could be key.
how we articulate it as in the problem statement.
I want to.
I mean, sometimes you throw it like intuitively or something, but that's not really, that doesn't really dial it in very closely, does it?
And if you say something like next gen innovative way of filtering,
cutting edge,
cutting edge,
ahead of the curve.
Oh no, please stop. Or conflict. I don't know. I'm really making stuff up on how a problem statement works here. So please stop me. In a way that doesn't cause confusion or conflict, is sort of what I put down there. But
conflict. Okay, that's good. So the goal is the user isn't able want to reduce the number of search results based on categories and subcategories, so you can find the right set of results in a way that is not too much, and not it doesn't suffer that much. So yeah, you cannot say that data tables doesn't. Well, it can be an happy moment to be on the table. That's wrong for me to assume that every data tables can be a nightmare. But yeah, no. So yeah, great. So we kind of we know they have a list of results, want to reduce number, and at the end, feel nice about it. Don't be overwhelmed or still need to search or add more filters. Great. So let's do the as is, or let's do how it will always looking right now. We have to design something. We have to start somewhere. So do we start with the as is, or we start solutioning this problem?
It's hard to imagine. Well,
Maybe we
I
can
mean, the
take
as is.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we
go
could take a
ahead. Go
stab
ahead.
at the as is and how we're picturing it, and then move into solution after. See what we have in our heads.
Okay. Where are you guys?
Okay, I'm just making a data table. As is. If you just go to the right.
Mm,
Um,
there it is.
Okay, let me get my little table. Bam. Oh, you're already doing a table?
Actually,
Okay.
how do you add more columns and rows?
Right
Yeah,
click.
there you go. There you go.
Eh.
Nice.
Uh,
The effort.
interesting. Effort is happening here. Okay. I can let you click into it, Megan, if you want. I'm not sure how well actually Whimsical handles like totally synchronized stuff like in the same thing.
Oh gosh, what am I doing? Why is it looking like that? Oh, okay.
That's just how.
When you're typing, I think. Also, it didn't go on my first cell. Okay. Oh, wait.
Can't fix that.
Name.
Oops. Okay, nice. So basically what they're describing happening, I think, is that there's like a drop down that you select on this categories one.
That has like,
Let's say
if you like
10 or something, and then but they're dependent between they're interdependent between the two. So you could have a case where for example, you have, what did they say in the thing?
It said,
It says dairy and still see subcategories like cookies and beef, for example.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So if you had kind of that drop down style, like they're per column, right? That's how the filtering works. I think we're going to assume that it's per column filtering rather than a separate container.
every column is filterable, but that doesn't mean that they are doing it in the column. They could do it, in a facet somewhere.
Yeah. Because I think that really would impact our approach, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they are saying filtering columns, columns. So let's do it columns. Let's go with columns.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I see your thing here, Kira. That's the column drop down. Right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
I wonder if this is single select or multiple select. You might still see these two.
Oh, that's a really important assumption.
I wonder.
That we need to figure out.
Hang on. I don't know.
Well, they're filters, right? And so this is not a query builder with ands in it. So let's just assume it's mutually exclusive. Like
You'll get the one.
Or should we? I don't know. should we?
I don't know, because suddenly
let's try with the simplest.
Like, what about subcategory? Okay, I don't know.
Let's do with a mutual exclusion, just so we can. Let's fix that first, and if I add complexity after, if we have time.
Yes. So I would propose one potential thing, as a maybe something to think about.
Cookies.
So
Yeah.
with these kind of drop downs, we could actually make them, we could afford them a bit more context, potentially. So with this subcategory drop down, for example, we could have, an actual title on top.
Mm.
And then we could have milk, yogurt, whatever.
This is future version. This is next version, optimized version. Yes. And we could even have a thingy at the top where you can start typing stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, let's maybe just take a step back too on what we want to do here. So I was just thinking about this context to afford a little bit greater context of what things belong in. Because what I'm curious about is the different ways that you could actually choose to communicate this. So one option you could potentially take would be to have, if you do select, then the subcategories that you see, we can control the list so that maybe we rank that category higher in the list, or we disable things that don't make sense with the category. So there's a kind of a question to me if that's useful, to bring the relationship between those two things together, because that's what this person is really asking about. Is do you do like an actual progressive disclosure thing where you're like, figure this out, we want you to get to the right spot? Because it is really tricky if it's across two columns, because this is not really a flow, right? So we're completely relying on the inputs themselves to do the work for us. So there's ways to maybe mitigate this in the inputs. But there's, we don't have to necessarily take an approach of two separate lists and stuff like that either. So
yeah, I'm inclined to also consider, I think you said about the two columns, really either one. If we have one, like if we have the subcategory, then all of the categories should be the same. If beef, then all of this becomes meat. And I don't need 1,000 results taking out one column that says meat. Alternatively, if I want to see all the dairy, and I'm just talking out loud here, category section, then I think that might be a case actually where subcategory becomes interesting or important, because if I select not subcategory, then subcategory could have a lot of variety. That might give me context.
Benoît, you're thinking.
Yeah.
You're thinking.
I'm not sure if it's a workflow. It could be a first step and next step. I mean, if you choose category, you can go to another table with just subcategories. So if it's mutually exclusive, it's linear. It's a linear experiment. You're selecting a category, and then you go to a next table just with the subcategory because you're moving elsewhere. That's one crazy idea I had. And also one of the things that we have to think about is there's the developer who just put a table and use a plugin. Think of classic material data tables kind of things, and you can filter things. Their problem, it's very basic. If what do I display on the right side on a subcategory when they select a category? That is what I'm hearing the most when developers ask me questions like that. Is don't change the interface too much. What's happening if I click a category and the subcategory will change, or if I'm clicking a subcategory and the category is changing? This is kind of a I know we want to maybe change components, think about something else in a drop down or a filter. But this is a real problem that they don't know how to fix when you have a different columns and they are mutually exclusive. So I would invite us to try to fix it without changing anything in the UI, without adding stuff on top of it, to just see how we can play with the mechanism of filtering two set of variables.
I think I have an idea.
Yeah.
This is kind of, I'm really making it up though. I'm just going to kind of throw it out there.
Much here for that.
See what's up. Okay, so I'm kind of picking up on a couple of Megan's vibes from earlier. And I'm just thinking about a little bit of maybe potentially amalgamating. So have milk.
So that's the category, for example? That's what you have?
Well, what I'm actually proposing is a merger.
So this would be like
potentially.
foods.
Yeah, something like, yeah, exactly. So you could, this would create, maybe prevent against a conflict, because you could actually say dairy, and then all of them would be selected, or you could go into, specifics within something like that. So you could, and the column itself would just display, maybe dairy - yogurt or something like that.
Well, that was my first thought, by the way, is to not touch the table at all, not touch it at all, but have another set of filter elsewhere. And for me, this looked like a classic facet, where on the side, you can filter your table on the right. And you don't have to change anything on the table. You don't have to modify it and add things. If you put it on the side, you're filtering down tables. And that's kind of easy thing to do, right? Merge them as a filter somewhere else.
Well, yeah. Thinking that this would actually manipulate the table, because you'd merge category and subcategory into one column and call it something else. So, but you'd still have the same mechanism of, this would just be what the drop down.
Merging two columns is a
like.
big assumption of if it's possible. I feel like they want to keep this functionality in two categories, because I'm pretty sure they will have the same thing for sizes and weight and things like that. They will have filtering for other columns. So this is good for the category subcategory, but I think it's just they gave us an example of what happened if 2-3 columns, fight each other. If you say, well, merge everything, I'm not sure it's scalable. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, but the thing is like with data tables, is that they get slapped together really often, and the actual like data integrity or structure of the data or things like that are not optimized for the actual use cases, which things like developing facets forces you to do a little bit more. You need to think about comparing apples with apples and having some of those like normalization conversations. Because so I mean, so I'm kind of curious about that part of, like, that would be kind of the first thing I would do, is just try to figure out the data a little bit.
It depends too how many.
Because if we have. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So one solution, our solution, and can have a big impact. We say by default, you can filter columns. You can filter columns because there's some columns that are mutually exclusive. We are merging them and moving the filters elsewhere. So if it's that problem, it's a big impact. That means we're removing the filtering in columns in a way. That's what we're saying. Now you're filtering elsewhere. And when you're filtering in a column, you're maybe just hiding rows with, characters, or show me all the categories that start with, I don't know, B for a subcategory, but you're not filtering. You're not just hiding.
Well,
But that's a big impact. Just by the way, we're saying we're removing filtering from columns and we're moving it on side, right?
well, I don't think it's necessarily removed. Like I mean, what this is the use case is getting more complex for filters, right? So when we have a situation where the use case is becoming too complex and you have to do a lot of validation between two separate fields somewhere, that's kind of what the case is here. So if you did a lot of like interactive stuff and reactions between these two lists, it would be really hard to communicate why these things have happened, right? So for example, if you just manipulated the category list or the subcategory list to like do disabled stuff for when you selected a category, it's really actually hard to communicate why that happened. So like showing that they're disabled. So maybe, that's actually a really good trigger to be creating something a little bit more complex, because hard to actually show that cause and effect relationship when two things are hidden like that. So like in addition to these kind of categories, if you get, as a user, if you get yourself like into these jams with these kind of more workflow based things, like facets are a good way to handle that, because you actually have a little bit of real estate to work with, and it's together, right? Like that's a kind of a argument for having facets handled separately.
I completely agree with facet. It makes sense, and it's common practice, so people will quickly understand it. They will understand the relationship. Now the question is, what's happening in the filtering of columns now? Are you keeping it, removing it, hiding it, disabling it?
Well, I
I
think
think I would just keep it the same personally. But go ahead, Megan.
I don't know if I would probably want to try it out. I'm unsure about keeping both within inside, filtering on the column as well as having facets. I think there could be conflicts created there that would strike. And maybe the columns I might be able to sort from alphabetical or whatever, but it doesn't actually change the results. And then if the opposite, if we do keep in column filtering, I'd expect all of the filters to work the same. I wouldn't have additional facets. Actually, we set it up right now on the left where it says food, optimized for category and subcategory to be merged as one column. But hang on, maybe I'll duplicate this so there's actually a separate one. Presents the facet a bit better. This is more of a drop down, I think.
But you said something important here is you're removing the ability to filter in columns and just sorting in columns. I'm not saying it's a good or bad idea. It's just a big impact on development. It's a big choice. It's an important choice. Right. So
yes.
Of course, the developer will say, "This is not what I asked you. I didn't ask you to change all the UI. I'm just saying it. With this little component, how can I play with this?" And I totally understand that it makes sense, by the way. And if we are having smart filtering, I think it's way better experience, and people will understand it. And if we're removing the filtering inside columns and using just filtering and have facets, it's great. But that means that now a data table cannot survive without filters, without facets. Without facets here. That's it's kind of a big decision when people are used to be able to filter like in a spreadsheet in a column. Just what I'm saying. are we ready for that? Because we have to kind of sell this thing if you know, for
So
developers.
are we saying
that's
that we
a
would
lot of
have?
work.
Are we saying we would have facets filter and category and subcategory can still be independently filtered in the table?
If we have facets right now and we keep filters and columns, we're not fixing the problem. We're
Right.
just, you know. So what's happen if subcategory, category are, you know, exclusive? Are we disabling things? Are we hiding things? How are we reloading the table every time that we're selecting something? That's the core of the problem. The filter are a great addition. But if they are addition, the problem is still the same. If we're saying we're removing the filter, we're putting in the facet, great. It's a big impact. So we just have to wait, you know, both.
Yeah, I mean, it opens up a lot of questions, right?
It's a lot of questions.
A lot of details that you need to kind of figure out. Because on one hand, like the granularity that column filtering provides is really nice. But it's not like relevant all the time, you know? But then in, you know, there's a few things to unpack because with facets, typically you have some kind of like normalization or like other considerations coming into the mix, right? Like with weight, for example, you'd have ranges, things like that. But in column filtering, would you have ranges? Like, would you have that same structure?
It could. When you think about it, you can say filter every column that start with this and end with that. And so you can have a range if a category is a number, for example. You could.
Yeah.
That's part of filtering.
Or greater than,
Or
less
greater
than.
That's a range in a way.
Yeah.
And having this ability in one column, it's kind of a default thing now that we have else everywhere, you know. Filter this column by everything you can do. It's like a little query builder inside your own column. And it's all good and easy when every columns are independent. Now the question is, well,
what about when they're friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a hard question. And facet, I absolutely agree, because we think we need to visualize and see also the reaction of you know, the consequence of our interaction. If I'm choosing this, why are you just displaying me yogurt, milk, and butter? And it's not great in the column. It's not great.
Well, you actually, if you want to do, oh, sorry.
Go on,
we got a delay.
Yeah. Not changing the UI. I think that's really interesting. I wonder if there's a solution we can take even more extreme here, or merging the column, huge updates like you mentioned. I wonder if there's if we do have category, if let's say you click dairy and then subcategory automatically updates, it'll clear, and then we just have to depend on system updates, like system messages, to say, okay, this is what changed. This is, you know, this got reset. So that I'll only see the subcategories that apply to dairy. And then if I change category, subcategory ends up clearing.
Yeah, there's a few things you can do within the context of a list. Like you can, you know, there's like active, I don't know, this is sort of bad copy, but you could do something like this, other subcategories. Oh, look at all these states. Haha.
You are disabled?
Yeah, disabled is here. So like this is one that you can do, and you would, like, you know, Megan, like you're saying, you have to be supporting this with some system messages too. you know.
But there's a big but, and I don't want to do the bad developer kind of a persona, but I will say, yeah, that's one way, but I want to do it the other way also. I'm choosing one subcategory and the category is changing. That's I think what's the problem is right now. And I'm not sure it's fixable. I'm not sure it's fixable, I have to say. I'm not sure we can play too much with that. So what happened in classic spreadsheet experience? For example, we're running a spreadsheet. We have this same thing. We have a list of aisle in a grocery, and we have subcategory. What's happening in the spreadsheet? Do we know? What's the common thing if we're sorting?
It's just nothing. You just
nothing.
don't get anything,
Okay,
right?
so
Like that's how they handle that.
exactly. So why do we need to do this interaction between subcategory and category? So I think I have to say we are fixing something that is bad at its core, I think. Or it's not the right question. The question is not how can I fix it and make sure it's idiot proof, or there's no error proof. Is how we can make the experience a little more useful when you're selecting different kind of filter. I'm not sure we can fix it. I think we can help and support by adding different kind of navigation. Maybe you can go from a table and go to another page just for dairy or just for stuff like that. Having a framework is a little bit more flexible than. It's a very hard problem. It's not the first time that I have this, and we'll have this kind of a problem again and again, because think about any kind of a database that we want to give to a user. We'll have this conflict somehow, and most of our solution is never. There's no one turnkey solution. I've never seen this. I've always seen other helping, supporting stuff like adding facets, adding other type of navigation, hiding things, or just disabling things. But I'm not sure there's a magical way to choose butter and the category will just update itself and the row will update itself and we can play around. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure it's a case. I'm not sure it's a use case, by the way.
I think, this is actually a.
Go ahead.
Am I lagging?
A little bit. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Great question, actually. I think we've probably all run into this on question. And I think the thing that's difficult is we're making a major assumption that the developer is not going to change a single pixel on the screen, and we need to make our UX logic around that. Like the table's not going to change columns, the drop down's going to stay looking like as close as possible. But if we have that component or make a slightly different assumption, then there's multiple. I've seen this being solved in multiple ways. Facets being one, or
facets being one. Navigation.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, but exactly that. That's what I had a lot of experience of developer asking me this kind of question and saying, I don't want to add any other component, any new navigation. Just fix this goddamn table so I can do whatever. And the thing is, I would love to do that, but I'm not sure it's possible. We have to think about the user context, helping them, giving them, other tools so they can make a better decision. But things will disappear if you're choosing categories with no subcategories. They will. It's kind of hard. And now if they are disappearing, if you're selecting them, it will be messy,
And what Megan touched on in the context of user messages and stuff, or system messages, that's where they kind of start to get integrated as well, because like an empty state is the perfect place to communicate why there's nothing here. You know, like it's the simplest thing.
Mm.
I'm just drawing one on the side.
Oh,
Um,
oh, there it is.
I don't know why I'm making it dotted lines, but no result.
So
Uh,
I think the question, the problem is not fixable without understanding what's more about the problem or digging a little bit more. That's where the limit of just taking question out of UX StackExchange is. It's kind of a. It's a very common problem. This is why I said at the beginning. Is it a common problem? It is a problem. It's not the first time that someone asked me this kind of question. And most of the time, developers just want a quick fix on something and don't want to change things and don't want to think about the user experience because it doesn't feel that important. Just a weird kink in the logic, and developer will say, "Oh, I don't like this logic. Oh, there's a problem with the logic here." And maybe there's not really a problem with users. Maybe they are overthinking it. Can happen, by the way.
yeah,
Or maybe the use case is kind of weird, or someone ever since said, "Oh, what's happening when I'm doing that? That's a problem. I don't know what it is."
your
And they
QA came to you.
at the queue exactly, and
Yeah.
they have to react to that. Like
Yeah.
right now, there's a problem, the subcategory, and when I'm changing it, it's a problem. And they want to say, okay, I have this task, the user story, I have to fix this. And so they ask you a question about UX StackExchange because they don't have an answer. It's not logical.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, there's a lot, there's a lot to that. And part of that is, yeah, within that design process of mapping your logic and mapping the data and how it reacts and how it all works together. Because you get into cases like this before you're trying to ship something, right? And you have to just figure out if you're going to accept and maybe edge case, maybe not edge case, because you don't have analytics probably. Or what, right? So it's
But
annoying.
it was labeled as a problem by someone somewhere. That's what I love. It was a problem. If I'm selecting a subcategory, the category is not changing; it's disappearing. But I want to change the category. So, where it's coming from? What's the problem? Who asks to fix this? Why? Is it really fixing a problem, or can we help the user understand, their choices? And I think this is where we're going. In fact, is that there's multiple ways, way too much for
There's a lot. There are a lot of ways. Yeah,
so many
because
ways.
this. Yeah, there's a lot of ways, and they need to get. You need to understand what's worth the effort as well, because if this is an edge case and it's like you can probably solve it with an empty state that just says these things don't go together, and you have 0 results.
Yeah, it's
That's
not
pretty cheap, right?
exactly, and it's not fixing the problem like the developer asked, but it's kind of
It's not.
it's not, but it's easy to implement, and the impact will be a lot better. And when the edge case will really happen again and again and again, I'm pretty sure we'll have to rethink how this UI is done. If it's a real big problem, maybe a data table is not even the problem. Maybe we have to rethink the navigation or even the workflow, but doesn't feel like it's a big problem. So I feel it's for the first time we're not fixing a problem because it doesn't feel like it's a problem.
Well, we don't know. We just, it's so ambiguous. And there's so many choices because sometimes these things are just like, well, make it better.
But
So I just put on
what you did is a wonderful, small little things we can do that we can learn a lot from. This is what I love about this. Without doing a facet, without doing all of this, if you're selecting category and you're giving this little message, we can learn now if people really understand it, if it's a problem, if it's happening again and again. For example, we can have analytics. How many times this message is displayed? If it's displayed, 1,000 times a day, we kind of know it's a problem. If it's just displayed one time a month, is it really a problem? So what I like here is we solve the problem by trying to do something that is, a lot of impact, very feasible, and we can learn a lot from the problem and then really fix it. And I think it's a great design answer to problems like that. Is I don't know. Let's do this little thing and let's learn together, dev and designer, on how problematic is this situation,
Yeah.
and really fix it in the right way.
Yeah. Nice. So, so on the right, we kind of put I just put like all the different choices that we came up with. And if you want to scroll a little bit, Benoît, to the right.
Oh.
So that's kind of, this shows the diversity of what we're talking about. I think for this one, it's like support everything with,
yeah.
Tell me if that's a good description, Megan. Yeah.
Well, it's our answer to this problem, to be able to filter in the selected filters, is, well, our answer is let's learn together, and there's a couple of ways to fix that. We can enrich the experience by adding facets where people can understand, what's happening a little bit more and make better visual decision with a list, something that they can play with. Or we can communicate and support everything with system messages and see if it's really a problem. And if it is, we kind of know now who experiences this problem more. And now we can sit down with them, see how they're using it in the real context of use, and see if it's really a problem, or if it's an edge cases, or if we can add something just for them.
And I would say too, with a problem like this, I'm not sure exactly what the trigger is for me, but there's different levels of maybe predictability between things that are dependent, depending on how your data works. So something like category and subcategory, if these are actually food categories, it's pretty straightforward that those are related. It's pretty straightforward that yogurt is dairy, right? But if the actual mental model for people is more weird than that, then you have a real problem, because then the relationship between these two data points is very confusing, because, if you just have like an insider kind of thing in a certain field, that people don't really understand the relationship between the two, then you're in a situation where this is actually a pretty big deal. Dairy and beef don't match, okay, but like two other random words, you're like, those should match.
That's a great point.
Oh no, sneeze attack. Ebba Sneezer Scrooge. Keep sneezing. It's okay. You can keep going. You can take a moment. It's all right. Wow.
Exactly. And this is, it's a great point. It's a great point. So the logic will still be a problem. But
exactly.
But that's not why we're here as a designer. So exactly.
So are we voting that something like this is the approach that we would take? Empty state? Or
that's an interesting question. I want to say anything to learn more about the problem. So anything that we're displaying as a new thing on so people can react to it is good. So that's why I kind of love this. It's an empty state, and if people are clicking clear filter from no result, we will know at the end that people have a bad filtering experience because you have to click clear filter a lot. Are we fixing the problem? No. But now you're embarking with designers into a process of learning more about the problem. And this is what I think it's better for this one. Because I never find in my 25 years of experience in enterprise UX how to fix this common thing. And that's why I wanted more than 2 people this problem of the week today.
Yeah, so I was just kind of summarizing it a bit. So, what we're really proposing.
Well, can we go back to the problem statement just for fun?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'll follow you.
Okay. All right. So our problem from our friend on StackExchange is, as a user of a data table, I want to reduce the number of search results based on categories and subcategories so I can find the right set of results in a way that doesn't cause confusion or conflict / sad face and wants to make you a happy face. So what we did, next step. So what we did was we went wild and we talked about, filtering in columns. We talked about all sorts of different things. But this really is one of those problems that's a lot more complex than it seems. It seems like, oh, just make 2 inputs react to each other and you're good, right? But actually, no, there's a lot more to this. It is actually a really difficult problem to solve. Part of the difficulty in that is that the details of the data and the user's perception of that data is really important. But there's a lot of unknowns there still. So we're like, what are we actually fixing? What should we fix? What should we put actual resources into? Because you can really go ham on this stuff if you want. So, if you took an approach of, say, improving the drop downs, making them more reactive, you could do that in a couple of different ways. If you took the approach of, making these things a little bit more defined, like by introducing facets, that's a direction you can go. You might even merge the category together, start to normalize the data, start to change things, or support all of these actions with system messages. These are, different tools in the toolbox. But perhaps really what we want to do here, because the use case and how often this comes up is really not clear. So what we would potentially do in a situation like this is actually create a solution that just gives you the data point that you need to know how much more to pursue it. So like an empty state where the table would be if you do this conflicting thing. And what this could give us is a trigger to learn more. It doesn't necessarily fix it, but it tells us, do we invest in this or not? And it can be a really good trigger to start to ask users a bit more about this, because stuff not showing up as you filter is kind of what it's supposed to do. So is this a problem? Do people between categories and subcategories? Are they really unintuitive? Those sort of things. So those could give us a bit of some metrics on how to proceed next, and how to work together as designers and developers.
So that's a gift that is keep giving,
Oh, come on. That's a gift that keeps giving.
I love it. So we unwrap it and we'll keep unwrapping it. That was a great problem. I liked it. I really liked it. What do you think about it, Megan? You loved it? It was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those topics where, you just talk to the developer and be like, okay, how about this? What does this look like? What is it? Is this possible? What's the effort? And, there's into there.
Yeah.
Big time.
So thank you, Megan. Thank you, Ceara. That was our last problem of the week for 2022. We'll have more next year. If you have any problems, please contact us in any ways. We'll geek around your problem. And again, thank